All right. It looks like we're live and recording. It is Wednesday, August 4th, 2021. It is August already. Unbelievable. It is a gorgeous day in Central Texas. I am surrounded by a bunch of logos behind me. Digital 360 Summit 2021 is coming up August 31st to September 2nd. Can't wait to see you all there. And we have a great show today. We have an amazing guest. Let me start with asking John Butler to play some nice music for intro.
All the girls I've loved before, who traveled in and out my door, so glad they came along. I dedicate this song to all the girls I've loved before.
Thank you, Johnny. How are you today, John?
You know, I'm doing just fine. It's a great day in Austin, Texas. It's wonderful. It's not that hot. I'm doing good. I had a great lunch with a great friend of mine yesterday, and we talked about a lot of good stuff that happened in Austin, Texas. And so I'm doing well. The events around us are very, very interesting these times, but I'm doing well.
Excellent, excellent. Llewelyn King, how are you, sir?
Splendid. Thank you for inquiring.
Brilliant, brilliant. And then we got our great guest today, Harvey Ring. Harvey, sir, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you, Andres?
I'm doing beautiful, beautiful.
Good.
Can't complain. It's really a very nice day today. The weather is holding on at 88 degrees. But let me introduce you formally, Harvey, for those who don't know you. I would say that you are a retired successful angel investor and a former executive at Dell. And you also had worked at companies like ADP and ITT and BT. And, you know, we're lucky to have you today. We're looking forward to the conversation. You have done some great investments in technology, and we would love to hear that, more about some of them. And we know that you have been, you know, a success in many ways, and we are really, you know, amazed by your background in education. You have a PhD in physics and an MBA in marketing and finance from the University of Michigan. Oh, so he's a Wolverine, John Butler. What are we going to do about that?
I think he's a fabulous person. I had lunch with him yesterday, and his knowledge and know-how is off the scale, and he brings to the table both science and business.
Yeah.
And you know, my whole deal is that
we somehow have lost his picture, but hopefully he's still there. Are you there?
I am here. I don't know what I did.
Guys, let me jump in and see if I can fix this.
No worries. All you have to do is turn on the camera. The camera is off.
How's that?
There you go.
There it is.
Don't touch anything, Harvey.
Yeah, well, you know, when you're kind of blind.
I'm here. Don't worry.
So let's.
I think it's a Michigan grass that's trying to operate something. That's what I think. Go Cat. Go Northwest.
Oh God, you guys are too much. So let me go and really spend a few seconds here on the fact that we are in a great interesting time. We have, you know, a situation that is evolving, and perhaps we should talk a little bit about it because it seems to be concerning. COVID has been sort of flaring up, trending up. There's some variances, not only in the US, but perhaps in other countries. I am curious about what Llewelyn thinks about all this. He's always been Mr. Cautious about what's going to happen here. Llewelyn, what's going on?
Well, we've you know, brought this on ourselves to a large extent by not taking precautions, by not getting vaccinated, by not wearing masks, and indeed by politicizing a simple health issue. There also are surges in all of these epidemics, and we're in a surge now. 93%, I read this morning, of new infections are the Delta variant. it's important that we get on top of this thing before we get a variant that is not susceptible to the vaccines we have, and then we're in serious trouble. Globally, it's the same mixed picture. Western Europe has been up and down. Much of the rest of the world is in an appalling state. Africa, less than 1% of the people have been vaccinated. And of course, the capacity of the hospitals to deal with the sick is minimal. And so that's a very grave situation throughout Africa, all the countries of Africa, from Cairo to Cape Town. So it's not a very pretty picture. There's hope. We know the vaccines work. We need to get them into people, and we need to get them in not only to all of our people, but into a lot of other people, because while the virus is allowed to incubate around the world and therefore to produce new variants around the world is in danger.
Yeah.
It's not a time for panic, but it is a time to do sensible things like get people vaccinated.
Yeah. John, we have talked about this over and over. We'll be tracking it. The economy needs to get back. We cannot afford to get back to a shutdown. How do we balance this?
Let me just say that Llewelyn hit it right on the head, but it's hard to legislate intelligence. That is, intelligence as defined as what people should do. I think if you talk to people, you have really two models going on. One is a model where you have the vaccination and you wear a mask. And of course, on top of that, enterprises are now saying, and organizations are saying, you must have the vaccine. So I received an email from, I don't mind saying, my Headliners Club downtown Austin, and it said, if you don't have your vaccine, we're not interested in you coming to the club. So I see what enterprises are trying to do. It's a lot of complexity. First, they're trying to balance the mass with who has had the vaccine. The other thing they're really, really trying to do is look at the relationship between them hiring people, trying to bounce back. What is the government doing now to enhance their ability to maintain their workforce? But on the other hand, a lot of people in Austin, their workforce is not returned. I'm working with restaurants now where they cannot get enough people to return, and they have altered their business model. In the back of everybody's mind is this: how can we go back to such a bad economy when everything was shut down, and all we had to do was take the vaccine?
Right.
I think that business enterprises are looking. I got a great email from President of the University of Texas at Austin saying, we're going to welcome everybody back in person, but we are keeping an eye on it. So all of this complexity is happening. So you turn on the night in the news, you have the complexity of information. You go to the store, you have the complexity of, should I put on a mask? And covering all of this are the new business models that people were starting that they also might have to back up. Covering this are the new business models that really developed during our difficult times, like we're on Zoom now. So all in all, I think it's going to be a mixed start with the economy. I think some enterprises would say, put your mask on, have your vaccination done, and come see us. I do not think we're going back to last year, total shutdown.
I hope you're right about that. So Harvey, you've been investing in the sector of healthcare for a long time. And obviously, like us, you'll be probably mostly locked down the last 18 months. But what's your take on what's happening? What should we be doing?
Well, one of the nice things about healthcare is it's exploding. It's such a big part of the economy. And I've been almost exclusively into healthcare. I have all sorts of different kinds of investments, platform for solutions in hospitals. I have technology to track patients in their home, what they're doing, how they're doing it, et cetera. I have another one that's a robotic bed that acquires patients from a hospital bed without touching them, moves them over to wherever they have to be dumped, and dumps and does the reverse process up to 500 pounds. So this is a very active area, and it's a lot of fun because there's so much opportunity there. So I'm enjoying myself.
What are your thoughts on COVID, and what should we be doing going forward? Should we be more mask oriented, more vaccine oriented? What's your take?
My view is really masks don't do very much, frankly, especially the kind I wear, which is just cotton. I have one in my pocket and it sits there most of the time. But I think the vaccines, I took my vaccines in February, and I've been, frankly, very pleased. I had virtually no effect. My wife did the same thing. And shortly thereafter, we went to Mexico to a vacation, and we had to get a test to come back, but we did that. The hotel accommodated that. We came back, and it's it is a way of life. I mean, if you don't want to go into some place and they insist on a mask, you just turn around and leave if you don't want to. But if you really want to do it, you wear your mask. Well, I feel perfectly safe. I mean, the numbers are such that if you are vaccinated, you really don't get very sick. It's like the flu, perhaps, and it's not a big deal. Very, very few people die after they have the vaccine. I think the real metric is not how many people get a positive, but how many die.
Yeah.
That's the important number.
I hear you. So with all this, I think that the economy is kind of trading sideways in many ways. 1 week is up, 1 week is down. Things, excitement. We haven't seen the job creation in July, but I hear is significant, which tells me that it's going to be very difficult to contain the opening of anything going forward. And so it's really interesting what's happening. I'm curious, when we talk about healthcare and the opportunities, Harvey, where do you see primarily as an investor, where are the opportunities? Where is it? Is it diagnostics? Is it digital back office? Where are the opportunities in the healthcare sector for innovation?
I got news for you. It's all over. It's such a huge segment. I have, recently did this robotic bed. But the same company has a septic system that cures sepsis in the hospital, and they also have a system to cure diabetes. When you have diabetes, very often your feet don't get enough blood supply. Well, you use this device, and after 3 months, skin starts to grow back, and you're basically over time, your body becomes more or less normal, and you don't lose your limbs. I mean, diagnostic stuff is really super. I mean, there's so many different kinds of tests that you can do that prevents doing complicated tests. I just recently evaluated a company that has a test for cancer. The first test was for cancer of the uterus, and it's non-invasive. Basically, what they discovered is that the resistivity of the uterus is different than the uterus with cancer cells. So they have a little optical thing and 2 probes, and they put it in the uterus, and they test it for the current. And you get a readout right away that says, well, you're free of cancer or you're not. If you're not, well, then you need to do the next thing, which is typically a biopsy. But it prevents an awful lot of wasted surgeries. I mean, it's all over the place. My robotic bed is just exactly that, a robotic bed that eliminates nurses from lifting a patient. Hospitals have a big problem. The world is getting heavier and heavier, unfortunately. And so by not touching the patient, you don't have any risk of hurting your back or getting infected from a patient. It's a perfect kind of solution for these days where we have very viral diseases all throughout a hospital. So, I mean, it's just wherever your mind goes, you can find an opportunity. There are lots and lots of smart people. John and I talked about entrepreneurs and how smart they are and what they do. And I just love working with them and helping them create businesses and successful businesses, which is always more fun than not.
Yeah.
plenty
Harvey,
of
let me ask you this. Being in the healthcare field, and for those things that are intrusive to the human body and the FDA, so we know that if we look at all of the great research, and by the way, Andreas, the amount of money that's invested in healthcare and is off the scale in Silicon Valley, for example. But I want to ask Harvey about the relationship between FDA, all of the research that's being done. With COVID, you know, they tried to speed up a lot of the processes. So as an investor in healthcare, how do you look at the amount of time going through the FDA? Is this administration friendly toward entrepreneurs trying to go through the FDA? So when you're doing an investment and you're in that dynamic field, how do you look at the FDA science that's intrusive to the human body, getting people in Austin, Texas to be on the team? Because, you know, we just got a medical school and we used to have to go to Houston to find experts in bio and those kind of things. So how do you think about that when you're investing?
Well, you know, I look at in order to sell a product that the FDA needs to approve, part of the money has to go to doing the work. And it's not cheap. You got to get the right consultants. The last one I did was one called NeuroChaos, which was a test for concussions in the brain. And what it did is it measures the blood flow through the central veins in the top of the head. And when you have a concussion, the blood flows more rapidly. You can measure that. And when it gets back to normal, what I call the baseline test, it's kind of like your temperature. You have a normal temperature, and then when you get sick, it goes up. That's a simple test. It costs us about $1 million to do that one. And we got it. We thought we were there. And it was a B2C business. And unfortunately, we didn't understand the market as well as we thought. And parents with children weren't willing to pay $50 to do the baseline scan. So that business failed, but it was a good product. It still exists. It's just mothballed, and maybe someday we'll take it out. But you know, it's part of doing business. It's part of life, and you know, you got to deal with all these agencies. What I always do is you get experts. I mean, there are people that really know how to deal with the FDA and all the other different agencies. I mean, there's so many agencies out there. It's hard you can't be an expert in all of them. That's for sure.
Llewelyn.
Well, I've been looking, thank you, Harvey, that was very interesting. I've been looking at regulatory agencies, including the FDA, for a long time, and they have certain characteristics that evolve. First of all, they become hugely cautious and self-defensive, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be very frustrating for anybody trying to do something new and different. Over the whole health field hangs the thalidomide disaster of 60 years ago, which nonetheless is still a sort of Banquo's ghost. It's there, that what happens if you don't test thoroughly enough and you get terrible consequences. If you recall, thalidomide was when pregnant women were given the drug, which has other uses and is perfectly good for other purposes. But if you give it to pregnant women, you have children born without limbs, no legs or no arms, or one leg and one arm. Truly horrendous consequences. So the FDA, as much as any regulatory agency, is extraordinarily cautious. It has its procedures, and it's indifferent to the cost of a clinical trial. But they need to update, because the clinical trials don't always fit the question. For example, I did some work on a brain tumor. A bunch of doctors came to me and they were curious about, they wanted to change the way they treated brain tumors, because basically they said we give them chemotherapy and we give them radiation and they still die. We have to do better than that. But one of our problems is we can't do a clinical trial of new ways of approaching the problem because nobody lives long enough to survive in a clinical trial. So that 6 months is not long enough for a clinical trial. And they were trying to set up a system of rolling trials. The other excessively cautious agency is the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And it really is indifferent to cost. It costs an unbelievable amount of money to get a new reactor licensed. And if it's a new kind of reactor, soon push is going to come to shove in that issue because we have the small modular reactors, which will come to market and will cost $100 billion and way beyond that to get any kind of license. That is really, I think, unfortunate. The cost for clinical trials at the FDA is enormous. The money there doesn't go so much to the FDA, which it does to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, which is self-financing, but which is the very cost of getting thousands of people in the whole business of it, and the control group and the active group. It isn't easy. I've done a lot of work on a thing called chronic fatigue syndrome, more formally known as myalgic encephalomyelitis. I run a YouTube channel on it, done it for a decade. I have 100 plus movies about it. But one of the things which gives relief to some people is a drug called Ampligen, but it has never passed clinical trials at the FDA, but it is in constant special dispensation experimentally, and people swear by it. Well, there's something wrong there. There's a disconnect there. If it is helping people and nothing has gone wrong over a period of 30 years of this drug in special dispensation helping people, it probably should be allowed to be generally prescribed. It's not a cure, but it helps some people enormously.
Right.
The regulatory agencies don't need to be disbanded, but they do need to be tuned up.
Yeah. I was going to ask Harvey, not exactly a change of discussion, but it seems like COVID has taught us that the globalization of the journey of globalization that we were at, in the interdependencies that we had built with just-in-time manufacturing, and if I'm touching back into a lot of parts of your background, you're a emeritus supply chain anywhere you go. What are we going to do about supply chains and the vulnerability of globalization? What is your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm a victim of that. My investment, Clairvoyant Networks, manufactures in Korea, and they're having trouble getting chips out of China. Mm-hmm. It is a problem. I'm all in favor of moving a lot of more stuff into the United States. I think we need to change some of our regulations to reduce the cost of manufacture in the United States so that we can be on a more even plane with China and some of the other countries. The hospital bed, for example, that I talked about, the robotic bed, has a sheet. It's manufactured in China. We bring it into the United States. It costs us about $2.50. And we've just found a vendor in the United States out of Seattle area that'll do it for $3. And as far as I'm concerned, that's great. We get it locally. Yep. They can ship right away. Mm-hmm. We can deliver to any hospital that we need or any nursing home that we need. And we don't have to do it out of China. And so China will become the backup, and this company will be the primary for us. Mm-hmm. And, I think that's what's happening with the chip business. Unfortunately, the fabs that have to be built cost an arm and a leg. They're many, many billions of dollars. And, it takes many years to develop them so that they can actually produce chips in volume. But I think you got to start. I think we have started. And I mean, I just think things are going to improve over the next 5 years, 10 years, because chips are everything. I mean, they're in every single product we buy. There's so many chips in the car now. You know, we have cars sitting on lots that are missing chips. You can't build them and finish them off because you're missing chips.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a problem. And but I think companies and I think the government of the United States could help if they provide some special regulations, some reduction in taxing or whatever, some financial help to do it.
John, it seems like this is a critical weak link into the gig economy and how we go and progress with sharing of assets and in the way globalization has taken us to this point, and maybe we need to go a turnabout here. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. You know, I was working with the previous administration on supply chain and bringing manufacturing back to America, but not just to America, by the way, bringing it back to, it could be Mexico, it could be anybody in this, in our reach, in our scenario reach. So I think what it has taught us is this: we got flat-footed. We got caught flat-footed in America. We didn't make anything. We couldn't make a mask, right? We couldn't make a syringe. We couldn't make anything. Okay, so all of a sudden you have a chip started. So the supply chain now is time 4 or time 5. Not only do we not make the chips, we're not sure when the chips will come from China or whatever country that's making them. And as Harvey just said, everything, it's got the chips in them now. So it has the ability not only to slow down the manufacturing of automobiles, but in our concept of smart cities, it's going to slow down traffic lights, it's going to slow down telephone poles, it's going to slow down clothing. I'm working with an entrepreneur. He's putting chips in linen, and he could trace for hotels where all of the linen is. So it's a problem that we must really, really deal with. And the only way to do it, as Harvey just said, is for us to make the investment in manufacturing, create the incentives for boards to invest and bring it back to America. And of course, we can do this because we have empty buildings that can be reorganized and reinvented to do that. So at the center of all the supply chain, everything that we do is the smart kind of manufacturing that makes everything smart.
Absolutely. Give me a timeout, guys. I'm going to do my plug for our Digital 360 Summit and our sponsor. So hopefully you can all see my screen. Our event is coming up, and we have an amazing lineup. The speakers are confirmed from all these companies and maybe a few more. It is quite a lineup. Hopefully you all will be showing up, and we're covering all kinds of things like high performance compute and AI and cloud and mobility, smart cities, smart buildings, water and smart technologies, smart energy and utilities, and on and on and on. And I want to say thank you to Texas State University for sponsoring the Digital Roundtable. So let me go back and perhaps digress a little bit into something really important. You know, we talk a lot about the Kosmeski's days and John Butler early days of building Austin into what it is in terms of entrepreneurship, and a little name comes up often enough. His name is Michael Dell. Harvey, you work for Michael Dell. You were in the early days when the company went from a small company to becoming a powerhouse. Any memory lane stories about supply chain, new business models from the Dell days that you can see happening today, or perhaps learning from them?
Yeah, I have so many, but let me just talk about one or two of them. When I got to Dell, which was the beginning of 94, one of the things they were doing is trying to figure out what the forecast is going to be for computers. Now, at the time, we had two divisions, Major Accounts and Dell Direct. And we had really 2 desktop lines, Optiplex and Dimension. So they had to come up with 4 numbers. Well, I don't know how many hours and how many days it took them to figure out what to do. And I was just watching because I had no idea I was a brand new employee. But eventually they came up with the 4 numbers and they transmitted them to manufacturing. And now if you fast forward 90 days later, if you look back and see how well the forecasts were, they were within about 15% of what they forecast, which was fine from a manufacturing standpoint. Now let's go my last year at Dell. I was there 5 years. We had 14 divisions. We had 2 desktops, 2 laptop lines, and 2 server lines. So every division had to come up with 6 numbers. And then if you fast forward 90 days after they gave the forecast, what they actually sold, it was within 0.1% of their numbers.
Wow.
Do you realize how much money comes out of cost when you can forecast? Well, actually what they do is they sell to their numbers. So, but all the costs of wasted product, excess inventory, et cetera, goes away. And that was one of the major reasons why Dell became so good at what they did. And of course, all the products were around the factory so that you can move product into the factory every hour if you wanted to. So that helped too. But the selling part of it and the coordination between selling and manufacturing and what the inventory was very well coordinated. And the company really worked well together. And that's one of the victories that Dell, it was all done with spreadsheets, guys.
Let me just add to this. When Kosmeska said, and of course, George Kosmeska, the founder of Teledyne and IC Square, used Dell as an experiment. He had a direct line to Dell. And it was Doug English, who played football for us at Texas, who came back and did a company called Proline. And when he did Proline, he took all of the Dell inventory out away from Dell. So as Harvey said, so that could be managed. But the person that did that spreadsheet had to be a special person. Can you imagine having an algorithm in your head? And as Kosmeska looked at it, or as we looked at what was called Dell Direct, the whole idea was Michael would order all of these keyboards and it would become obsolete. And then he would order all of these screens and it would become obsolete. With Doug English, All Pro, whose father was in the oil business, came down and said, I'll do Proline and I will buy the inventory. So the idea of, as Harvey said, Dell created that, and it's been a blessing. It was a blessing at that time, but when we have a pandemic, it became pretty wild and pretty interesting. That is when your suppliers are cut off. But it certainly gave Dell that boost to move into the next kind of business that he wanted to be.
Sure.
So Dell Direct and Doug English. Yes.
Llewelyn wants to jump in.
I would like to ask Harvey a question. You've obviously invested very successfully in the high-tech companies. Have you looked at all at the growing demand for what might be described as the old economy? The infrastructure bill will necessitate an enormous amount of steel and concrete, an enormous amount of construction to deal with some of the problems on the horizon, like sea level rise and maybe relocating garbage dumps. Also requires old-fashioned tractors and backhoes and all of that good old stuff. It may be driven by a computer, but you've still got to have the fundamental equipment there to do what we need to do to get ourselves up to stuff and to ward off some of the disasters that are possible.
Well, mostly what I do is I'll look back at automating manufacturing. So automation, robotics, things like that are things that I've looked at, and I haven't done any investment because usually they take an awful lot of money. But if you go into a car manufacturing plant these days, you don't see people on lines. You see robotics. You see machines building cars. That's what's going on. And machines that build cars are very efficient. They don't take any time off. You don't have to pay FICA or anything like that. But it uses tremendous amounts of energy, electricity. And if you know anything about electricity, and I think this group probably knows a little bit about electricity, the manufacturers of automobiles are moving to locations where there's relatively cheap, plentiful electricity, because that's become the big cost in a factory from an operating standpoint. So those are the things that I've seen. I haven't participated much other than the robotics side of it, but it's very clear that, for example, Germany doesn't build many new car plants. They move them to the United States, or they go to China, anywhere where there is relatively cheap energy.
That's very interesting, Harvey, and I totally agree. But you also raised the question that the new factories are automated, so that the political idea that we will bring manufacturing back to the US and there'll be a surge of employment associated with it is a bit naive, isn't it?
Yeah, it won't be people. I mean, the long-term problem is, automation, uses fewer people, different skill sets, but a dozen software programmers can replace with a robotic thing a whole line of people in a factory, and the robotics work 7 by 24. So yeah, I mean, we're going to have social problems as a result of that. I still think we're pretty far away, because there's so many things that are expanding in the area of services and needs of people that, in my lifetime anyway, it's not going to be a big deal. I think it might be a bigger deal when my grandchildren are my age.
Absolutely. I think when your grandchildren go to Home Depot, they're just printing out at home. I mean, the 5D printing, when we say manufacturing, is 5D, it's computers for printing stuff. Right. There's a student at our law school at Texas printing out revolvers and guns. It's the whole idea. Whatever you might need, you just print your rake out. You're printing automobiles out. They're bringing in so it's certainly not the old manufacturing that we knew.
Yeah, 3D printing is a big deal.
Yeah, 3D printing. It would create some jobs, but not like the old jobs, right?
Different kinds of jobs,
right?
Different kinds.
Harvey, you're a wise man, and you've worked in these industries or studied them. What do you make of the current phenomenon where people are disinclined to go back to the jobs they had before the pandemic, where around where I live, every kind of business is begging for help? And I've listed myself on several employment things for journalistic reasons, and there are very good jobs begging for employees.
Yeah. We have the same problem in Austin. My daughter works for a company called SHI, who's a VAR. It's about a $6 or $7 billion VAR. She has about 80 program managers or project managers working for her to manage the 2,000 or so projects that they have going with their various customers. She can't find project managers, and it's a big problem. And I think at this point in time, I mean, what most companies do right these days is go and steal them from another company. Doesn't solve the unemployment problem, but it solves their short-term problem. I think we have to improve education. I mean, we've got to train people to do some of these jobs. We don't do it.
Even the low-end jobs are wide open. My wife and I went down to Walmart's for a particular purpose yesterday and walked in this enormous, cavernous place, and no employees were visible. They had security people at the gate to see we didn't pocket anything, but you could easily have put something in your pocket because there was nobody around. You couldn't find anybody to ask a question except the pharmacists were on duty. But otherwise, they have no employees, big signs up. There's going to be a huge jump in inflation, I would think, as people compete
Salaries
for jobs.
Are going to go up. You can bet on that. They have to. There's no question.
I think that's
inflationary, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I agree with that. We have done a significant amount of surveying of the younger worker that is getting $700 a month from the unemployment checks, and that's, you know, just about enough money, or more money than they make if they were doing $15 an hour. So that $50 an hour and no benefits. I think that the big companies, they, you know, we're used to that employee being available, are in a world of hurt. So.
Well, let's look at it like this. Remember that you know, we say in the old days, you get an occupation, but also look at the benefits. So the drawing card for firms that provide health benefits, that was hospitalization, all of those kind of benefits, retirement benefits, because our problem, as you know, with the pandemic was the gig economy that had no retirements. And Harvey, being from Michigan, can tell you that at one time, the best land in the Western world was in Michigan, with literally the best kind of retirement. So a person could finish high school, or drop out of high school in Detroit, go get a great job, a great union job, pull for the Detroit Lions or the Detroit Tigers, send their kids to college and have a great life. Well, I think those days are long gone now. And we've talked in this program about the whole idea that we need an investment for the gig economy. We need people to live by, whether it's tips or playing music or whatever the case might be, or a safety net. And we also need to improve the situation like Detroit had in the old days, because as we've said on this program before, people don't have retirements anymore. They have 401ks, or as Llewelyn was saying, Texas 501ks. I think I remember right.
Johnny, I've got to say, I'm very surprised to hear there's a labor shortage in Austin. I thought you had achieved something close to utopia there.
Yeah, unemployment in Austin is like 4%.
Right. Hey, you guys, we tried to hire a plumber.
Nationally, it's 6%.
Yeah.
We tried to hire a plumber to fix a couple of things in our house. The guy said, I'll come over for $1,000. And I told Nancy, do it. We need it fixed.
Right.
You know, that's the market. And if I were to tell a child these days, you don't have to go to college to be a plumber. You can make a lot of money being a plumber.
That's right.
You can make a lot of money without going to college, because there's a great need for skilled people that are craftsmen or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the part of the problem we have is that at some point, everybody thought they had to go to college. Well, that's, I'll say it nicely, BS. That's not true. You can get great jobs these days without going to college. A good example is kids in high school or grammar school, for that matter, learn how to program. Well, they don't have to go to college to get a job. They could be making $125,000, $150,000 a year right out of high school if they want to get a job as a programmer.
Mm-hmm.
That's the demand. That's the value of their skill set. And I think we need to change the mindset of people so that these other skills, other things that you can do are just as good as going to college and getting I don't want to denigrate any profession, but you know,
I would like to add something to that, if I could add, and that is that if you go into one of the trades, your chances of starting your own business are very good indeed.
Yeah.
If you go into a four-year arts degree in English literature, you're not going to start your own business.
No, you're going to be poor too.
Yeah,
or journalism. It's very hard to start. I managed to do it, but very hard to start your own business in journalism.
Right. I mean,
well, let me just say this as a college professor who collects tuition. I think that you're right, but I think when I came along, it was a family thing, and I'm proud to say I'm a fourth generation college graduate. But it was just something expected, and nobody expected it. They didn't attach it to a job.
Yeah.
The idea was to go and network, go join a fraternity, go meet people that can take you through life, and go get a degree in art literature, and then we'll teach you what to do and how to do math or how to do when you get out. You remember that General Motors, what they did was they educated all of the engineers. They did not go to colleges and universities. So that old model has always been there. And I always thought that college education was just a family expectation. And once you got that expectation out of the way, then you're gonna be a bomb if you want to. And I know in my case, it was never connected to really getting a job. I mean, it was not seen as a trade school. You go to trade school if you want to go to trade school. And of course, remember that all of our entire economy was based on people who dropped out of college. From Gates to Dell, those great entrepreneurs who took their problems to the market. And I think that both models are right in a way.
Yeah,
I made a mistake.
No one size fits all, that's for sure.
I made a mistake. I dropped out of high school. I should have stayed on a bit and dropped out of college, then I might be rich.
Well, but
or maybe richer.
You've done very well for an African American, I might say.
You're very gracious.
Being born in Africa.
I suffered terribly under colonialism.
So Harvey, I'm curious about something. Why do companies fail? What is the reason that a startup or a young company, even a mid-sized company, why do they fail?
Well, let's just be real clear. Starting up a company is very risky. Almost anything you do wrong will knock you over and you will fail. And I have been a part of several failures. I guess I'm proud to say that, because from every one of them, I learned something. Mm-hmm. And once I learned that lesson, I never do it again. Mm-hmm. So in my latter years, I've been very successful. Early years, I had plenty of failures. I think my view of it is philosophical. If you, in order to start a company, you have to build a successful small company. That means few number of people, very, very focused on a market, sell a product or a service successfully, be able to bill it, support it, all the things you need to do to be a real company. Once you achieve that major milestone, then all the opportunities are there for you, because you can get more money to expand your marketing, your sales. You can go to a different set of objectives nearby, and you can expand your business. But first, you have to have a good, solid, small business that's reoccurring revenues that you can be proud of. And maybe it won't go any further than that, it becomes a lifestyle business. That's okay. But if you really want to go bigger, you have learned a lot of lessons and you know how to spend money properly. And then you can raise the money, you can leverage it and build a bigger company. And that's what I've done all through my life. But I first had to learn the failures.
Yeah. Let me add, and Harvard knows this, let me add this. 90+% of the great companies were founded in 128 in Boston, Silicon Valley, and Austin, Texas. And the ecosystem that Harvard helped to build really contributes to the whole idea of how do you measure that risk. So I'll always ask my students, if you want to be a country western singer, you go to Nashville. If you want to be an opera singer, you go to New York. A movie star, you go to California. And the reason is, we have created in Austin, Texas, a great ecosystem which we try to reduce the risk. And that is a network of people who absolutely know what they are doing, quote unquote, who have done startups, quote unquote. So as Harvey said, failure is certainly a part of it. But starting a company in Austin, especially now, Harvey, as you know, as opposed to 40 years ago or 30 years ago, is so much easier when it comes to getting the people who can code, people who understand, and those kind of things. So I like to say that the ecosystem that Harvey helped to build also helped him to be successful going forward.
Well, I would say it even more. We are successful in spite of Silicon Valley.
Right.
If you want to start a company in Silicon Valley, you need 5 to 10 times more money than you do here in Austin. Right. It's just dollars and cents.
And the reason is we use people like you, Angel Network. Dell was Angel, Whole Foods was Angel. National Instrument, Jim Jasor was Angel. Evolutionary Technology, K. Hammer was Angel. So what we did, as you know, Harvey, better than me, we used our network of wealthy people, and we didn't go, because we didn't need the 800 million to start a Dell, whatever have you. And we've been very, very successful here in Austin.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of luck also, John.
Yes, it does.
But yes, right. I mean, you need smart people. I mean, I'll give my pitch. You know, it's a lot better to work with really smart people. And that's what I have fun at. Because the young people coming up that are entrepreneurs are really smart. I may have what I'll call some wisdom, but they're really smart. And for me, it's fun working with them. So I mean, I get a call about once a week, and it's fun to talk to these people, try to help them and give them a start. And I always make myself available because for me, it's fun. I mean, I have a ball doing it, and I can make significant help in a 2 or 3 hour conversation with people and try to focus them on the next objective, the things they have to do to get to the next milestone. And then I just say, well, if you need help, give me a call. You know where to reach me. And I'll be happy to help you to get to the next level. So to me, that is the give back when you're lucky like I am, and you've learned a few things. You give back because that's how it all continues in a circle.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So Harvey, real quick, the memory lane. Where do you have the most fun? If you had to pick one.
Well, I'm not sure I could do it. I guess my very first job was the most fun. I graduated with a PhD in physics in 1969, I guess. Mm-hmm. I was a postdoc for a year and a half, and then I decided I was going to go into the real world. And after convincing my professors that were on my committee that I was serious, they went and opened up their Rolodex, and he called a bunch of CEOs. And about 60 days later, I had 3 job offers. And I took one that was a startup in Austin, Texas, in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We were in the remote computing services business. They had received $1 million from some lawyers in Detroit. That's when Detroit had real money. And I joined as about the 15th employee. To make a long story short, we built a packet network. We copied basically the ARPA network. I was a software programmer working on PBAs to do that. And we were acquired by ADP in 75. My options, I didn't even know about options, by the way. I just received them and ignored them, turned into ADP stock. I put those shares away for my children. My children had a free ride through college, which was wonderful. But more than that, I learned about all sorts of other business. ADP was a great company, great people. I had a lot of fun. I had huge opportunities. I went from a programmer in 1974-5 to a VP of business development. I was the VP of R&D. I was on every acquisition committee that the company did from 1976 to 1983. So I had a great run there. And I think I had more fun there because I was able to do so many things by myself with a great team of people. So I would guess my first job was the best one. I've had a lot of fun at others, but your first one is kind of special.
Absolutely, absolutely. And clearly, you know, tell me something else. When you look at all the, you know, and I would say that being an investor, which is really the quintessential catalyst position for capitalism to function, it requires an incredible amount of interesting skills. You got to be a risk taker, and you got to be savvy about where to put the money. You got to understand technology, and you got to understand people. But when you're doing that, Harvey, why would you invest in Llewelyn or John or me? What would be the differentiating factor? What makes one entrepreneur better than another? What are you looking for when you invest?
Well, I think it's the drive, it's the focus, but also you have to be a good listener. I mean, very often an entrepreneur wants to boil a pot of water, that's huge. And that's not the way to start up a business. You have to be a rifle shot. You have to very carefully pick your target, go after that target. Once you do that successful penetration, then you can expand your business. Some people don't understand that. And I walk away from those deals because they're way too risky. It's no fun to fail. You have to fail in this business. There's no question about that, but you want to give yourself the best odds. And you want to improve the probability that you're going to be successful. And so it's a combination of people, the plan, and the very careful set of objectives that you plan for so that you get to what I call the major one, which is a positive cash flow business with all the components of being able to build, sell, support, and develop additional projects and support your customers. So those are the basics, but then everyone is different. I mean, that's what's the fun.
Now, Harvey, you also came along as a scientist when our generation, we saw it all from the beginning in terms of the new technologies that we call the new technology. We saw the development of the computer revolution. We saw how chips changed flights. We saw the importance of software. And you have a great advantage of having seen so many things. And as a physicist, I take my hat off to you. You've gone from wondering what the hell happened to rocks and planets to making money. So I think that's a good thing. But you have a great advantage because you bring the science. And remember, when you're a physicist, it's about modeling. It's about writing equations. It's about being a statistician. So you can look at things across space and time, so to speak, in business. And I think you have a special knowledge and know-how because you are a physicist and you understand product development and you understand how people move and the importance of markets. And remember that physics own finance now, and physics will own marketing now because it's a bunch of equations now, algorithms.
I mean, I think, the combination of physics and a business degree in marketing and finance was absolutely the perfect combination. And I did the MBA going to night school while I was having 3 children in Ann Arbor. So it was a very stressful time, but I had a lot of fun. It was great, a great education. It opened up so many doors for me. And I think it's, was the right thing for me to do. By the way, I was the first person in my family to go to college. I was the first person to ever get a PhD. So my father was a high school graduate and he ran furniture stores. He was very successful, but it was a different kind of a business.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you went to Michigan all those years. I can't even imagine have to go to those football games and it's not LSU. I mean, I just can't imagine having to go to a Michigan game.
I was in the stands when Woody Hayes threw the goal sticks or the yard line sticks on the ground and jumped on them. I was in the stands and saw it. I didn't miss a game from 1960 to 1983 when I left Ann Arbor. So that was 23 years. Almost all those years I had 50-yard line seats. It was a great run. I had a great time doing it.
I can see it at LSU, but Michigan, I just can't envision it. I can't envision it, but I can envision it.
Michigan's fallen on hard times these days. So.
This is good.
So Harvey, another last nugget for us listening and watching. The world has changed dramatically. Technology continues to take over things. But when you look at the most successful companies, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, while technology is a significant, important element of their success, customer experience probably drives even more why they're more successful. If you had to pick when you have a business between having better products or focusing on a better customer experience, what do you think is more important today?
The most important thing, it's really easy answer. The most important thing is a customer. Having a referenceable customer, having the customer stick with you for 10 or 20 years is the most valuable thing you can do. I always emphasize that in all the businesses I have. You can't ignore the customer. They are the number one. They tell you what they want. You supply the product or service. They stick with you. I like businesses because they're stickier than consumers. But that's the most important thing. And when they tell you what they want, you deliver it, they're delighted. They buy more of your product or services, whatever it is. That's how we did ESO. We just sold ESO to Vista Equity Partners here in town for $750 million. We started it off with an investment of the A round of about $4 million that I raised way back in 2009. And it took a long time to get there, but it was a very successful deal. But it was the focus on customers. We didn't lose customers. We kept every one of our customers. If they were combined with somebody else or they were sold to another organization, yeah, we might have lost them. But the customer is the thing.
Yeah. Llewelyn, a final question?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I find this rivalry that Johnny and maybe yourself, Harvey, but I think you're not so committed to it as John is, between Silicon Valley and your town. At what point does your town suffer from all the problems of Silicon Valley because it's been too successful and everything bogs down on just too much?
Well, I don't know. I mean, Austin is still growing. Let's be real clear. It's not Austin, the city, it's all the surrounding areas. We are exploding in geography around the city of Austin. And so what we have is big companies moving in. We have obviously Oracle, Apple, Intel, you name the big company, they're here. Tesla is obviously going to be a big presence. That's all going to throw off lots of money, lots of entrepreneurs. And we have the infrastructure to build companies very inexpensively and all the kinds of people you need to make them successful. So I think we're still got a lot of roadway to go. I'm enthusiastic about the opportunities here in Austin. I get to see a lot of them. These days at my age, I am, by the way, 4 years older than John. I will have to admit that. So I'm not going to live forever. But while I'm alive, I'm having a great time. And I get to see a lot of things and talk to a lot of smart people and help them. So seeing a company form from zero and get to $10 million is where I think the fun is. After $20 million, it's a different set of things that you have to do. But the creation and what you have to do to start it up is really the most interesting thing I could imagine doing for the rest of my life.
And let me just say to my distinguished colleague from East Texas, from the eastern part of America, I have a saying to my students when that question is asked, Llewelyn. How is Austin? Does it have problems? And the answer is, it is better to suffer and be unhappy in a Ferrari than sitting in a bicycle in Detroit.
Let me just remind you, here in East Texas, where we have a place called Newport, we have some very large cottages, mansions, which are a testimony to the age of the railroad and railroad fortunes. Those were days when entrepreneurs, worked in one place and played in another. Clearly, you're all trying to do it in the same place. I wonder what they knew that you don't.
Well, you answered it right. I talked to Silicon Valley, and their big problem now is not affordable housing, it's parking private airplanes. Anybody who lives in Austin now, we're getting to be like Manhattan. I mean, and it's going to be expensive, but there are lots of expensive places in America. And I knew the old Austin. I helped, in thinking about the new Austin, and we had nowhere to go in the old Austin, okay? The only jobs that we had came from the university and the state government. So we know that there are problems associated, but as Harvey said, we're not bounded by an ocean. If you got 71, we can go all the way to Llano. Waco and Austin, we're fused.
Right.
San Marcos, great university, Texas State, is doing great things. And Silicon Valley is 5 or 6 cities, and Austin might go all the way to Columbus, Texas. So we're excited about all of the land that we have. And we have lots of people moving here from lots of places, but we'll make sure that we have another wall from people from Rhode Island if they want to.
Well, there's another thing. We have a government that recognizes people are the most important thing. We don't have an income tax. We have a very low tax rate here in Texas. We have a government that tries to help entrepreneurs create businesses. And so we get some help from the government. That's a good thing. I think, when I lived in New Jersey, they took 13% of everything I made. When I moved to Texas, they took nothing. So I got an immediate raise by moving from New Jersey here to Texas. And so, it takes a lot of components.
I hate to interrupt this happy talk, but there are a lot of social problems in Texas, as there are everywhere.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And social problems, in the end, take money.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have the same kind of support for the poor that the Northeast does on our tax base. And I can tell you this, when it's, good or bad, you come to Texas and, you start a firm or you work, you might have welfare, but for a short period of time. That's the way it was when I got here 40 years ago. So Llewelyn, it's not the same kind of attitude as to when my wife is from Cleveland or when I was at Northwestern. The whole idea is we would support you for a while. And of course, when you open up that whole idea, we have so many entrepreneurs, we have so many people. I did a book on an American story, Mexican American wealth creation. The wealth creation here by Mexican Americans in Texas is also off the scale. And so we like to encourage people to do great things. You're right, we don't have the same attitude toward social problems, but we do have social problems and we do work on those problems.
Oh, yeah. Every city has social problems. It's just a degree. Right. And we're working on them. I mean, we've got a lot of groups here in Austin that are working on the problem, and it's going to get fixed. You watch over the next 5 years.
Harvey Ring is getting his money right to the problems. I can tell you that. So I was involved in the Boys and Girls Club. Harvey supports organizations that get kids up to scale that comes out of bad schools. I certainly give to the Boys and Girls Club heavily. And so Harvey is right in the center of using his wealth to help people get to where he is today. Now, he did remind me that he was 4 years older than me, and he was my superior when we got in the car. So I accept that only about.
Well, I'm coming on a flying visit to Texas on Monday and Tuesday, not to your part of the state, but next week I shall probably be radically changed in my views. I'm expecting an enormous conversion of attitude.
We always check the list coming here, and we have real walls, and then we have those walls that just reject you. So you might think you're coming to as you leave the People's Republic of America, we welcome you to Austin.
Okay, right.
I have to unfortunately
great to be on with you. Very interesting.
We have to come to an end. Unfortunately, Harvey, you have been very gracious. We have had a great time with you, and thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much, Llewelyn. I enjoyed talking with you. You should come to Austin. I'd love to meet you.
I'm coming to Austin. I have to remind my colleagues here periodically that way back in the 1970s. I was invited, and indeed did so, to address the Texas legislature. I was publishing the Energy Daily, and they thought I might be able to help them get even richer when they thought the only way to get rich was oil and gas.
Well, thank you.
Well, that pays a lot of the taxes, I'll tell you that.
There you go. There you go. Johnny, take us away.
Listen to my song if you want to sing along. It's about where I belong. Texas is where I want to be. It's the only place for me where my spirit can run free. Texas. All right, Llewelyn. I'll take care
Thank
now.
you, guys.
All right, bye-bye.
Be good. I'll talk to you
Bye.
soon. Take care.
Thank you very much.